My name is Thando Vokwana. I am a part of the Vids Investment Society. I would like to thank you all for joining the Global Markets Interview Workshop today. For the duration of the workshop, would be much appreciated if you would turn your cameras on for the remainder of the events. I would also like to thank our fellow collegiate societies and other organizations for joining us and helping us put this together. B1, UCT, Stellies, UJ, and UWC. But of course, this event would not be possible without our esteemed guest speakers, Sheldon Kock, Francina Malete, and Thando Vokwana. So without further ado, I would like to hand over to the moderator of today's events, Tracey Ashington. Thank you.
Thank you. We've been planning this for so long. I actually was saying earlier, I'm feeling quite excited. I think it's the anticipation. In any case, I love the fact that you collaborated. You guys initiated it and collaborated and included other universities. I think that that is a very special thing indeed. So thank you. I'll start with a little bit about myself, and then the panelists are going to introduce themselves. For those of you who don't know me, my background has been in recruitment, in investment banking for many years. My real passion being graduate recruitment. And so, to the point, Francina and Thando, who are on the call, I hired both of them when they were at university, and look at them now. If that's not inspiration, guys. Yeah, I found whenever I was in a general kind of recruitment role, I was always leaning towards young talent because I really liked helping, get a foot in the door, etc. So I worked at Lehman Brothers in London for 10 years, running the European grad program, moved back to South Africa and joined Rand Merchant Bank at that stage. And I've often told the story. No one in corporate South Africa wanted to run a grad program. They saw grads as a liability. And so I think that the RMB grad program was one of the first in the country. And soon, because of the quality of like people like Francina and Thando and a whole lot of others, the business suddenly said, "Hey, wake up! This is a great way of getting in talent." And now it's interesting to see how many. I mean, I have one or two of my first grads who are now like head of IBD, etc. So, and I reiterate this because you're aware recruiters are going to find you and get you a foot in the door, and then you're going to fly. I then left Rand Merchant Bank and am now a career coach, my own small business, and I'm entrepreneurial, and then do a lot of these talks on campus for, my heart work. Thando, are you happy to go next?
Yeah, sure. I can kick it off, Trace. Hi, everyone. My name is Thando Vokwana. Yeah, I guess I was lucky in the sense that I happened to meet Tracey on my journey in my career. I had no clue what investment banking was back in 2009, 2008 when we initially met. Always thought I'd end up in asset management, go off to a hedge fund. And luckily, I stumbled upon Tracey, who I think at that year, you guys sponsored our Golden Key Society. So that's how we initially met. I ended up jumping onto winter school program at RMB, and basically that changed the course of my life. Tracey suggested that I should actually jump onto the FIC or Global Markets grad program, which initially I was a little bit apprehensive about. I never thought that I had the personality for markets. Traditionally very risk averse, and to my surprise, I ended up being a trader for the majority of my career. So Tracey did make the right call. I was on the RMB grad program for a year in 2010. I think there were only two of us that year. It was just myself and Ronak, who's also gone on to do some fantastic things in his career. Initially, I started off on the sales desk, basically covering currencies and fixed income markets for about 2 years. was a great learning curve, but I always had the hunger to want to trade. I eventually moved on to a book. I started trading Rand FX forwards for the better part of a good 4 or 5 years. And then in that evolution, eventually moved on to trading the Rand interest rate swap book. I spent about 8 years at RB and then moved on to Investec, where I basically ran the FX and rates business there for 2.5 years. Another opportunity opened up at Standard Bank. I ran the swap book there. And then the latter part of my career, last 3 years, have been at Goldman Sachs, where I was basically one of the seniors on the EMFX trading book. So my role basically covered a bit of everything other than FX. I traded inflation, I traded swaps, I traded bonds, and across different jurisdictions as well. Despite being a Rand specialist, I mean, I've delved in markets like Hungary and Czech. So it's been a very colorful and wonderful career. And then this last year, I've decided to step out on my own, start my own business, where investment banks are now my clients. So that's the power of the building up a network over the course of your career. And yeah, I'm basically delving into the world of entrepreneurship now.
Inspiring, right, guys? Inspiring. Hey, Sheldon, nice to see you. We're just doing some intros, so I'll let Francina go next, and then the stage is yours.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Just let me know if you can hear me. Can you hear me?
It's better now. Perfect.
Okay, perfect. Hi, my name is Francina, and yeah, as Tracey mentioned, she did hire me, and I have a very soft spot in my heart for Tracey. Every time I see her post, my heart melts. You know, because I think about how far I've come, and had she not given me the opportunity that she did, I don't even know where I'd be. I started at the RMB Summer School for Girls. And at the time, I also didn't know what investment banking was about. I had no idea. A friend of mine actually suggested that I submit my CV because I was in my third year at the time, and I had convinced myself I wanted to be an economist at the Reserve Bank. And that's where life was going to go for me. But my friend said, no, look, there's this great thing happening because he worked at RMB. Submit your CV and let's see how it goes. And Tracey did interview me, and I had no idea what it was. So I did some Googling beforehand, and I understood that trading took place. And I was like, okay, it makes sense if an economics major becomes a trader. And when I rocked up at the interview, she asked me, what do you want to do? Why banking? Why markets? So at the time it was why investment banking? And I said I wanted to be a trader. And the first question she asked after that was, okay, what's the share price of ShopRite? And I did not know. I had no idea. And I think I kept guessing. I said 21 or 35, whatever it was. And she said to me, go find out. And that I'm welcome to join the Winter School for Girls. And it was a phenomenal experience because I met amazing people. I met amazing women. And there was this one lady who is a trader, still a trader today. And the way she introduced herself to us as the girls on the program was that her husband calls her Superwoman because she can do it all. And that resonated with me so much. And I said, you know what? I can be her. I can be a superwoman as well. I can operate in a very male-dominated space and still be feminine, you know, in the best way possible, still be myself and not become a wallflower, not shrink. And that set me up so well because I always knew from that interaction that I wanted to be in markets. I knew that my skills aligned with what the division had to offer, the objectives, how it operates, how it contributes to the ecosystem of the banking industry, and that was it. After that, I went to the winter school the following year, and then after that, I joined the grad program. I was a markets grad for 2 years. I rotated across trading desks, market risk, credit, finance, operations. I saw global markets end to end. And I knew from the beginning where I wanted to be. So I had to navigate because it was the program. And then at the end, unfortunately, I couldn't get a front office role, but I ended up applying elsewhere because I knew what I wanted. And then I ended up at ABSA on the FX sales desk, and I was covering corporates. And from then on, I've been covering corporates. So it's both multinational corporates and large South African corporates. And I am at the intersection of business strategy, financial market risk management, and essentially contributing to the economy, if I can put it that way, because corporates drive the South African economy. So I help manage interest rate risk, FX risk, and commodity risk. And I work at Deutsche Bank now as a VP. And if anything, I oversee the corporate client portfolio. So that is me in a way that I hope makes sense and resonates with some of you guys. And I am happy to be a part of this discussion today. Thank you.
So inspiring. What I liked about that, Francina, is these young people coming in are saying, I want to be in investment banking. They aren't even sure corporate finance, you know what it's like when you're young. And so talking through your background, it actually kind of clarifies a little bit all these different elements that come into global markets. Sheldon, welcome. Nice to meet you. You're the only one I don't know. Thank you for joining. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. Hi everyone. Hopefully you can all hear me okay. Sorry for being a little late and for the technical difficulties. I clearly am not, I guess, anywhere near the comp sci world, given how long it took me to get on this call. But sorry, I've just had to step off the desk real quick. Yes, Tracey, nice to. I think we actually have engaged at some point when I was at WITS, I think, but I think we were just basically still helping us all get ready to try and apply for the likes of RMB. And I was probably just sitting in the back of the class somewhere. So not to worry. That was a very, very brief encounter. But yes, so my name is Sheldon, everyone. I'm an equity sales trader. I focus and cover emerging markets. That includes South Africa, the Middle East, Turkey, Israel, Greece for now, before they get reclassified as developed market. My journey was one that was definitely a little checkered and kind of stop-start. I started out after leaving WITS. I then I managed to get into I actually didn't really know what I was going to do right away, but I found myself joining a small broker in South Africa. At that stage, they were called Lachai Securities. They've subsequently had a couple of mergers, and they're now Peregrine Securities. I started my time out there on a grad program that basically saw me rotate through the different desks within a small broker. When I say small, tiny compared to the kind of business that it goes through at banks and I guess a broader global markets franchise. But I'd always known that I wanted to be at a bank. When I say that, I just wanted to be part of a bigger global markets setup, just more so because you wanted to really sink your teeth in and get part of the action. And generally, you want to be at a place where there's a full suite of offerings. But that being said, I did cut my teeth at my initial shop. I was there for 6 years, 7 years. Before an opportunity came up for me to join Bank of America. So I moved to Bank of America in Johannesburg, part of the cash equities team there as a sales trader. And I think it was 4 years later, I ended up with an opportunity to move to London, which is why, sorry, I was late, because a few of our markets that I trade are just kind of wrapping up. So I've been in London for 4 years and joined the broader EM team over here. Like I said, my role is still very much focused on EM cash equities. We deal, my clients, unlike Francina, who serve corporates, my clients are all asset managers and institutional managers that are generally split between long-only kind of pension funds and names that you probably would know, the likes of Allan Gray, Coronation, 91 and the likes in South Africa. But in in Europe, that would be the BlackRocks, Fidelities of this world. So I deal with multi-manager and asset managers and help advise them on execution strategy when it is time for them to essentially put any investment ideas to work, specifically on the equity side. But we do work very closely with our partners in FIC, where the likes of Francina would work, and even so our research and even the other parts of the investment banking teams. So I hope that you have a rough idea of what it is that I do and where I've come from. But also, thanks for setting up the initiative to Tinder. You touch base, and we've had a few chats before. But of course, I think it's very important for us to not just pay it forward, but try, like you say, maybe dispel some myths that we might think are pretty common in this space. And yeah, always provide a helping hand, because it's not the easiest of spaces to get into, but it's really fruitful once you're in there.
Sorry, Tracey. I think you're muted.
So embarrassing. Now I'm talking about money. And so thank you. Why we thought we'd do this webinar is because so many of us from the HR recruitment perspective can give you advice. I do lots of webinars about what to do in an interview and what not, but it's hard for me to prep you for the technical kind of questions. Like I'm still learning what a derivative is. It's not my area of expertise obviously. And so I thought, well, Tatenda actually suggested that we run an interview prep workshop, however, with a focus. So I'm going to do one or two things that are more HR related that you normally get at the beginning of an interview. And then we're going to talk about some questions that you could get in from a technical perspective. Normally, the beginning of the interview process, you're going to be meeting with HR and recruiters, and they may do, personality, competency kind of stuff. But when you progress to second and third rounds, they are going to be asking you some more technical stuff, and you don't want to be caught unaware. So that was really what we had in mind. I had said to the panel, does anyone want to talk about the structure of global markets? But you can find that on chat. In order to know the difference between, say, corporate finance, well, we call it sort of investment banking, but corporate finance and global markets, you can research that easily, and it is good for you to have an understanding of how the different areas work. Also, as graduates, you're not expected to know exactly. I mean, Francie, you were pretty clear on where you wanted to fit, but don't feel overwhelmed by the fact that I don't know if I want to be a structurer or a trader, or even what a trader is. That said, do some research so that when they interview you, you're not just saying, oh, I want to work in global markets. It's so impressive for you to say, with my skills, I think I actually could be really good as an algorithmic. I'm making up things, but to give you an example. So the first thing we're going to do is talk about why your cameras are not on. Okay, cameras on. When there's senior people that I have recruited and I have flew, when there's senior people that I've recruited and begged to come and present to you, and your cameras aren't on, it's disrespectful. Come, cameras on. Francina's laughing. She's like, oh my, Tracey. Okay, so why I'd love cameras on is the first question that I always ask in an interview. So say, for example, I'm interviewing and Francina, Thando, and Sheldon are with me. They're from business, I'm from HR. So I kick off, I say, okay, I've got your CV here. Please, will you talk me through your background? And like I said on the chat, this is an elevator pitch. This is 1 to 2 minutes where you're going to It's a hook where you're going to grab their attention. Who wants, ideally, because I see there are a few people on the call that I've coached before, so you're not allowed. But anyone who's never done an elevator pitch intro to an interview, who wants to try it out now, raise your hand and let's do it. You're going to get such good feedback. People are dropping off the call because they're so scared. I'm going to call on them. But let's give it a try. We're going to do one or two. I'll give you feedback, and then the business guys are going to take over with their questions. Bokamoso, I recognize your name. Will you unmute and turn on camera, and we're ready to go? Let me just see if I can maximize.
But I thought my camera's on.
Okay, perfect. I'm so bad with this platform. All right, Bokamoso.
Nice to meet you. I just want to confirm, is my camera on or is it off?
It's on. It's on. Brilliant. Thank you for volunteering. By doing this, guys, you actually get one-on-one feedback. So we're interviewing you. I'm like, so sorry, Thando's late. He was on the trading desk, but let's carry on. Please, will you talk us through your background, and we'll go from there.
Okay. So, hello everyone. My name is Bukamuso Mulaba. I'm a honors student in investment management currently at University of Johannesburg. I studied an undergrad in economics and econometrics. It's a double major. And I found interest in finance and investments while I was pursuing my economic path, just like.
Okay, stop. It's bloody cold in Cape Town. That's what I'm putting in. So all of that stuff isn't bad. It's informative, but it's not like impressive. I want you to boast a little. Not, I found my way to finance because of whatever. I want you to talk about everything in your past that you have done that has been amazing. All right.
Okay.
So start again. Keep going.
Should I start from the intro?
Yeah, let's go from the intro.
Okay. Hi everyone. My name is Bukamuso Mulaba. I'm currently an honors student at the University of Johannesburg. I found an interest in finance when I was trading for the first time during COVID, and I was just trying to make money for myself because obviously I was bored at home, and I was just trying to figure out what are creative ways to just, make money. And I stumbled upon a platform called Easy Equities, where I started trading for the first time. I was trading stocks, equities. That kind of led me into the path that I'm on right now. Yeah.
Okay, so that fizzled out at the end because you weren't sure, should I say more or not? It's like, what was that enough, etc. So why don't you finish with, yeah, and that's me. I have to tell you, the beginning was so much better. You see, in practicing once, you can practice with friends, family, colleagues, peers, and do your elevator pitch so it's polished, and you'll use that elevator pitch for the rest of your life, really. So well done on being confident enough to do it. And the second one was definitely more of a hook. Before we start with the technical stuff, is anyone else keen to give it a try? Come on. Castle. Off you go. Castle, you're going to do this, right?
Is my mic fine? Can you guys hear me?
It's perfect. It's perfect.
Okay, I'll give it a shot.
Perfect. So, Castle, and I'm making it kind of vague by saying, talk us through your background, whatever. And you could be like, should I start from when I was born? Should I start from uni? So it is vague. So if you're unsure, just say, would you like me to start from where I was young? But I kind of like when you're a junior, still like you are, I like you to say, born and raised here, decided to study this, did it this, was the top of this, was part of this team, blah, blah, blah. Okay.
Okay, I'll try. So,
all yours.
Hi, my name is Kastal. I am from Hartbeespoort here in Cape Town. And ever since I was young, I've always been interested in global markets and current affairs and politics. I mean, that's why I literally have a world map there on my wall. And in high school, I was part of the I helped lead a team beat a record in Marnus Broodrijk's Snapspot competition where we had to rescue a commercial airliner failing in a recession. And we actually broke the national record and set a new revenue profit line. For my undergraduate degree, I went to Potchefstroom and Northwest University, and my major was in economics and risk management. I took part in the debate, campus debate. I was part of the finance committee for my hostel and various other social committees. And then for my honors degree, I'm studying here at the University of Cape Town, where I'm also part of the UCT Investment Society. I'm also doing my honors project on the effects of geopolitics on the JSE All Share Index. Yeah, that's all I have for now. Just muted, sorry.
Again.
I talk with my hands, so you should understand. The ending was a little tentative, but the content was fantastic. You told a little story, the map, you highlighted. Francina, you agree. What did you think, Francina?
I hope it's okay, guys.
No, that was actually phenomenal. I loved it. Because you told us about yourself. We've read your CV at that point. We understand your background. You don't need to dwell on it too much. So it's nice to get a sense of who you are outside of that, beyond that. So very interesting. I loved it.
Love it. Love it. Okie dokie. Last elevator pitch. Anybody? You see how they've just got better, because the first one it's always hardest because you don't know what to say. The next one can build on it. Anyone else? Otherwise, we're going to jump into more technical questions. Oh, Grace and Mbanga, are you? And okay, so Grace, I've got you first. Are you ready to roll? Let's do this. Yes, we can see you perfectly. Oh, we can't hear you. You're muted.
Okay, perfect. I just fixed that. Hi, my name is Grace, and I'm kind of new in the investment banking side. I come from a totally different background. I started in town planning, which is urban development, and then I went into data informatics, specifically geographical information systems, which is data that would help us understand where we should put our development initiatives.
Stop. Remember, you're telling them now about your journey and whatever, like explaining your start, and you're like, I'm new here and whatever. Think of yourself as a salesperson and you're selling yourself, and you've got 1 to 2 minutes to do it. I say boast. If you don't boast about yourself, no one else will. And I said boast in the nicest possible manner. So start again. Especially your journey has been so interesting, right? People are going to be super interested in that. Okay.
I hope so. Okay, let me try that again. Okay, my name is Grace, and I come from the urban planning background, and I delve directly into geographical information systems, which is looking at how can we use data to make some of those developmental decisions. My interest in investments and particularly finance is in looking at how can you measure the ROI on some of those development studies or development projects that you would initiate for some of the companies that are now delving into socioeconomic development, doing that outside of their CSI department, now as part of their operational systems. Can this be something that they want to do, not just a metric that they want to have a checkbox on their BE scorecard? That's my general interest around finance, and I hope that I can learn more from spaces like this. I was born and raised in Johannesburg, so I really, really have a keen interest in seeing Johannesburg doing really well and young people being involved in making money in industries that actually are generating wealth. Yeah, that's it from me. Thank you so much.
Yes, you're on mute again.
Muting again, even if I'm sneezing. Do you see the difference between the first one and the second one? It's exponential. And if you think about practicing it 5 times, how perfect you're going to be. And I was coaching someone today who said, in fact, they might even be on the call, who said, just doing one role play with me set her up, and it doesn't have to be with a career coach. It can be with anyone, but I urge you to do that. We're not going to do the last two elevator pitches because I think we've nailed it. I was kind of messaging the panel to warn them that I was going to ask them a question, but I didn't get it through. So I'm going to say it now and they can put up their hands. Thando, Francina, and Sheldon, what was the toughest interview question you ever got?
Okay, I'm happy to go first. I actually got something very non-technical, in what was otherwise a technical interview. Just to test how quickly I could process things, I got asked how many golf balls could I fit in the room that I was interviewing in. And now reflecting back on it, I think what the interviewer was actually trying to test is in a markets environment, you expected to multitask. So you can be speaking to a client, you expected to make prices. They just want to see how quickly you can think on your feet and also your logical steps that you take to getting to the answer. So yeah, it was just something very weird that threw me off.
And how did you do, like, at the time? And also, there's no right or wrong answer. So what did you say?
So basically, I reasoned how to calculate the volume of the room and then divide it by the volume of a physical golf ball. And that's how you would get to the number of golf balls.
And those kind of questions, they sideswipe you, but remember, they don't know the answer either.
Yeah.
And they just want to hear how you're thinking about it. So yeah, and look at where you are now, my friend. You clearly nailed it. Sheldon or Francina, is there any particular question that you have been floored by?
I think I can also provide a response. It also wasn't a technical question. It was a great interview, and it was right at the end when they asked me this question because I said that I am a markets enthusiast. And then one of the panelists said, because you mentioned that you're a markets enthusiast, where do you think South Africa's economy is going in the next 3 to 5 years? I didn't prepare for that question. I didn't know. And I went on and on about how social media was now booming because this is just slightly after COVID. I went on and on about how social media is booming, employment is going to go up because people can start monetizing on their social media channels and all that. I kept going on and on and on about the social media thing, but I think what they were trying to get at is, what are you paying attention to when it comes to the markets, right? Are you paying attention to what the Reserve Bank is saying? Are you paying attention to the macroeconomic data that's coming out? Are you paying attention to politics? Are you paying attention to what's going on in local economies? And where do you think it's leading us towards, right, in the next 3 to 5 years? So it's very important, if you are interested in global markets, to be aware of what's going on around you, read the news. If you say you're studying economics, understand the actual economic environment you operate in, and be able to speak to it, because that's one of the things we pay attention to in this industry, because that's what's driving financial markets. That's what's driving the exposures of the banks and the corporate clients and the asset managers that we deal with. So it's a very critical component, something to pay attention to. Yeah.
You're muted again.
Still on mute.
Still on mute.
I know. I was saying, I'm so proud of this little magic mouse of mine. I worked so hard to get it, and I forget to use it. Sheldon, anything from your side?
Yes. I think similar to Thando and Francine. I think we generally go into these things a bit of a nervous wreck, and kind of overthink so many things because we assume it's all going to be a ton of technical jargon that's going to be chucked our way. But similarly, mine was, I guess in some aspect I could have foreseen some of it coming, was technical in the sense of knowing where market levels are. So kind of what Francina spoke to before, but asking what's the price of ShopRite at the moment. I was just asked where certain indices on the JSE were, and like actually to the point essentially. So what the top 40 was trading at, which was kind of a segue into me to give a stock pitch. So I had to give a very quick stock pitch, which again, I think was a case of not really being too focused on the actual recommendation I have, my actual view on that, but just speaking to what Thando and Francina said, just trying to assess your logical process and your how you would go about breaking down a problem, which is something that can be transferable regardless of the role that you end up finding yourselves in. And then, yes, very importantly, around if you are keeping up with where currently the markets are. And I mean, whether it be news, I know that kind of just before that, I was asked, and mine was during the time of, I guess, when Eskom was essentially still discussing an unbundling, and I was just asked in my view of what would I do with Eskom if I was either the finance minister, or I guess at that stage the minister of anything state related. But I think a big thing, and it's one thing I'd always encourage, is just keep reading. You need to know what is happening out there. You know, I got also similarly to you not knowing ShopRite. I think I provided a really dumb answer for where I said the top 40 was trading. And I know that I thought I was ready. I'd been reading Business Day all week in the lead up, but more so just like understanding if things were up or down, not thinking actually if I knew the actual level the top 40 was trading at. But it was just more to speak. I think it was just a question to kind of stump you just to see, okay, are you aware of everything you've been telling me? So yes, I think especially so in markets, it's the draw card that I have for markets has been the fact that it is so all inclusive. It's a space that is so dynamic because it's got all these different drivers, whether it's politics, whether it's corporate news, whether it's the macroeconomic side. So as much as you can, try to stay as plugged in as possible. And it can be very high level. Nobody's expecting you to know all the nitty-gritty. But like Francina said, these are the things that actually matter. So you could be somebody who doesn't know how to do your DCF properly, but that's something. So that's basically it.
Sheldon, we kind of lost you at the end, but we did get the gist of it. And to your point, if we all knew exactly where markets were going, we'd all be billionaires, right? So again, there's no right or wrong. The previous CEO of RMB, we were once doing a winter school, and somebody said, if you give me one piece of advice, what is it? What should I be doing? And he said, you should be investing. And it can be, I don't know, they call it paper trading or dummy trading or whatever. You don't even have to put finance behind it. But even better if it's a small amount, but that you actually put skin in the game, but it gives you a reason to wake up and look at markets every day and have a view. And so you're never going to say exactly what share is going to appreciate or whatever, but you've got a feel for, I think it helps you a lot in interviews because you can say, I'm so interested in trading, and they say, pick one stock right now. And yeah, Colin, you have a question.
Hi, Tracey. Hi, everyone. I'm not sure what's there, but this other day I had received this question, which still bugs me till this day. So I was in an interview, and then they asked me, if you had to explain sound to a person who's deaf, how would you go about it? And till this day, I don't know what kind of answer I should have given there.
Just say the question again.
So they asked me, so how would you explain sound to a friend who's deaf? So the friend is deaf, they can't hear, but then you need to explain sound to them now. And it was an interview question. I knew it was a trick question, But obviously now getting that type of question, you're like, where do I sound? Where do I start explaining sound? And this person can't even hear because I can't use my words or my hands to explain sound. So it's
And
quite
in many,
confusing for me.
that's completely sideswiping. In the many years I've been in recruitment, I haven't heard of such an obscure question, although the management consultancies love to like sideswipe. What was your answer? What did you ask?
So I tried my best to try and explain it through emotions, right? To say that essentially for a person who can't hear, music is also, something that you understand through, feeling. So I explained the different type of, emotions and stuff like that. But really in my mind, I thought it was utter crap, But well, I
Love
didn't
your
get the job,
honesty.
so I think
Oh, you didn't get the job.
it was no use at all. I was like 2 years ago.
That's hard. Yeah, that's hard. I mean, yeah, I'm trying to think of a useful comment to give you. Tons, you guys on the panel, for a question like that, what would you look for?
I think it basically boils down to Sheldon. You want to?
Sorry, go for it, Thando.
I think it boils down to a thing of you expect it to work in teams, right? And people learn via different methods. So I would have probably answered it more in a visual manner, as one way to learn. So I think that they're testing your communication ability, and generally how you're going to fit into a broader team. Because literally in global markets, you never work in isolation. Even if you're running a desk, you still, you got people helping you on the team. So I think that's one way of testing that sort of thing.
I agree. I agree.
It's I think it's just a case of exactly what Thando was speaking. And look, of course, it's easy to discuss this in hindsight because we've all got time now to think about it. But of course, the situation itself doesn't help itself. But I think it was probably a question just to discuss or test your communication skills, and which is also a massive part of what we do. Thando and Francina will explain to you, alongside your multitasking, a massive part of what you do is you're probably on the phone or on a Bloomberg chat or whether it be email for the bulk of your day. And that be even talking or explaining things to clients or to your fellow team members. I speak to traders all day. So communication skills are massive. And I've seen it in tons of interview processes. We've just gone through it. We're basically doing all our summer internships up here in Europe. And a big part is the ability to communicate. And I think something like that, it's very obscure. It sounds a little kind of almost Silicon Valley type of question. But I think they're probably just asking exactly your communication, how you would go about trying to explain something to someone. So I would have picked up a piece of paper and said, I'll draw a picture of an ear and something coming out of the ear. Or you know what I mean? It's just, I think,
be creative.
Exactly. I think it's just a case of leaning into, your ability to communicate.
Okay. So, Francina, do you want to add to that?
I do. I think if I had asked that question, I would be testing your ability or trying to gauge how you would approach a situation where there is an obvious way to resolve the situation or approach it. But how do you now get around it when a spanner is thrown in the works, right? Yes, 1 + 1 is 2, but in this situation, 2 is not available. However, I need a response. How do you approach it? That's what I would be testing, is your ability to be creative, to think outside the box, to not be stuck in your ways. Because I think operating in markets, you need to be creative, because even the markets themselves, think about the SARB yesterday. The expectation was for them to hike, but they didn't, right? Because all data points were pointing towards a hike. The market was pricing in a hike, but they didn't. And now people are reassessing and they're trying to understand what happened. It's your ability to navigate uncertain situations. That's what I would be testing.
Love it. Okay, so for example, let's do this kind of a role play. So me, HR recruitment, I've asked you to introduce yourselves. Francina, Thando, and Sheldon are interviewing you for a role in their teams. Guys, what questions would you be asking? And I would love it if people put up their hands to attempt an answer so we can use it as an example that we can work with. But even if you don't. So if I said, oh, thank you, it's lovely to hear all about you. Thando has some technical questions. What kind, or Thando, Francina, Sheldon, what kinds of questions would you ask a candidate who is applying for a grad program in global markets?
I think probably start off with something much broader and then start drilling down into details. So if you had to look at the world economy since COVID, what would you pick out as two of the topical themes that have driven central bank policy?
Anyone want to try the answer to that? And don't worry if you get it wrong, because Thando will help you with the answer, and then everyone else is going to benefit.
Hi, Thando, do you mind repeating the question?
Yeah, sure. If you look at how the world economy has played out over the last, 6 years since COVID, what have been the two things that you point out as topical themes that have driven central bank policy globally?
That's a killer. Okay, off we go. It's a good question. Okay, so we've got our hands up by a few people. I'm just trying to see. Tatenda, will you just tell us who is keen
All right.
to try?
I think Colin has spoken before, so I see Eugene and Remo. So maybe I saw Remo, your hand went up first. Do you want to give your answer?
Let's do it.
Okay. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Yes, thank you. One of the first things I'd like to mention is that one of the main things that affects central bank would be the inflation supply side from the geopolitical tension that's been happening since the Ukraine wars and also since the pandemic as well. So Reserve Bank did, especially South African Reserve Bank, did hike up the rates in order to combat inflation.
Okay, I wouldn't know. Remember, I'm HR. Thando, what would you respond? You're muted. So glad somebody else is muted when they talk.
So spot on the theme. It's basically inflation's been the biggest thing that's driven central bank policy. What I would like you to do in answering that question is then, if you can actually expand on it by separating it into the time periods. So yes, inflation's been the main overall theme, but then if you look at it back in COVID, what caused that inflation? That inflation was caused by disruptions to supply chains, right? At that point, you still had to counteract the fact that there was no demand in the world. Everyone was locked up. So central banks now are in a catch-22 situation. Do you hike rates to basically suppress that inflation, or are you more worried about what's happening growth-wise? If you're more worried about the growth problem, you would actually be cutting rates or even leaving rates on hold, which basically led to almost this divergence in global central bank policy when they look at it from those two factors. So you've basically got one problem where you either stay on hold or you're either late to the party, and inflation ends up being even more of a problem further down the line, which means that at some point you'll have to hike even more, which is detrimental for growth in the future. And now you sit with a situation in the world where you've got war. So two major wars. So one that initially affected food in the Ukraine. So big food price shock, and now something that's going to be an input into everything else, which is oil, caused basically by this US-Iran war. Also, that basically causes inflation to spike up. And basically, central banks have this constant conundrum of battling this problem of, yes, there's rampant inflation. We can't get back to the targets that we had in the past. And globally, most central banks were looking at an inflation targeting policy of sort of 2 to 3% around the world. But now, you've got this problem of where's growth going to come from? So I think that's the biggest conundrum or hurdle that central banks have to deal with. So if you can answer it by alluding to any of those factors, you'll nail that type of question.
Epic. Thank you for trying. Seriously, and I think you guys will be more on my side, as in a little bit in awe of all of this info. And I think you did a good job. Well done. Okay, Francina, Sheldon, who would like to do the next question?
I can do one. So my favorite question, because sometimes we like to sympathize with students and understand that I can't say, let's think about ShopRite and tell me how the previous 2 years they've performed, etc., etc. I always like to ask, what is one thing they've been paying attention to in the market? And maybe one will speak to interest rates, like Mufilo just mentioned now. I would also dive deeper into it, because I have a challenge with candidates throwing buzzwords into their responses, right? I will target you. I will go in and want to understand, do you understand what you're telling us, right? Because we know. So if you're going to tell me about interest rates, I'm going to tell you about I'm going to ask you about what are the drivers, what have you been paying attention to, what do you understand about what's happening? And once you give me a response to that, I'm going to ask you which sectors, because I look after corporates, which sectors do you think are the most impacted and why, just based off of your response? Because a person can say interest rates are going up or interest rates are going down. And I'm like, okay, if they're going down, which sectors are impacted? And then you can tell me about the retail sector or the pharmaceutical sector. I'm like, okay, let's drill deeper into that. If it's the retail sector or the pharmaceutical sector, as a salesperson, because maybe you'd be interviewing for a role in my team where I look at FX, interest rates, and commodities. If you're looking at a client in that sector, what would you expect them to tell you are the challenges that they're impacting because of lower inflation or higher inflation? Because I'm also trying to assess your ability to connect the dots and understand how it's impacting the clients that we face or the clients that we're looking at. The points that we as salespeople, as a salesperson, or even as a trader, that we pay attention to as well, to gauge your ability to also make similar connections and the dots. Are you able to translate what's happening in the market to how it's impacting clients, and how as a bank or as a business we're able to support them, number one, and also be profitable as well as a result? So that's how I approach it. I try not to be as rigid and point at a specific thing. I will ask you, what are you looking at? How do you understand it? And what do you think the impact is? And then maybe we'll get a bit technical, because some people mention products and be like interest rate swaps. Then I'll ask you, okay, how does an interest rate swap work? Right? How does it work? And it's something that you would have, if I looked at your CV, I saw that you studied it. I want to understand whether you have a basic understanding of how an interest rate swap works, or even a bond, for instance, because even corporates issue bonds. What is a bond, right? How does it move? If the price goes up, what does it mean? If the price goes down, what does it mean? I would expect you to be able to tell me that. And I won't be strict. I would have the understanding that you studied a corporate finance module somewhere in there, or a financial markets module somewhere. So you studied it. It was taught to you. You wrote the exam, and you had to go and understand how this thing works. So I'm going to test you on that as well, to see whether you were able to absorb what you studied, right? Or were you just studying and cramming and hoping to pass? Because even in the financial markets environment, there's some things that need to come to you quickly, because you would have learned them. But obviously you'll have the opportunity to learn them and to study them. But as a student, having studied, I will test you on what I believe you should have knowledge of or what you should know at that level. But yeah.
Francina, I've heard that you're pretty hardcore in your interviews.
Taught you that.
I taught you, right? Sheldon, what would you ask?
Yeah, so I think, well, firstly, in agreement with both Francina and Thando, I think you probably are going to get a question on macroeconomics very early on. And when I say macroeconomics, exactly that. Just thematically understanding where the global economy is. Are we in periods of slowing growth? Are we in hiking cycles? Just to understand, because that generally drives almost everything. So you've definitely got to know very high level that. My specific desk is, like I said, we're on the equity trading side. So we might dive into a little more of the actual company specific related news. But I think what I would normally ask is something related to what Tracey's flagged earlier about showing your actual interest in the space, like whether you're having skin in the game. And when I say that, we're speaking to a whole bunch of students as part of investment societies at universities. So I'm almost assuming, if that's on your CV somewhere, that you're somewhere along that journey going about some kind of investing, whether it be completely just demo, you guys are just running a mock thing, maybe you've entered a JSE competition, you're part of the CFA challenge team, all those kinds of things. So I like to generally just try to understand if you have genuine desire and if you actually genuinely have an interest in the business. So maybe that's something similar that I've been asked in terms of what is a hedge fund, and some people will just stump by it in the sense of we all heard this term, hedge fund is this. I've watched Billionaires a couple of times. I've got other Billionaires a couple of times. I've just here to, but like Francina said, all we're here to do is to service our clients, right?
You're breaking up a little bit, but the message was
clear.
I love how you say have a view on markets. It's like, especially if they see that you're trading and then they say to you, oh, okay, what are you trading in? What was the share price? What is it now? What do you forecast it? If you bring something to the table, they're going to interrogate it further. So yeah,
exactly,
it's good.
Exactly. So sorry. Yeah. So basically, it'll just be something that's not super technical, but in terms of just understanding market participants, I've asked a couple of times in the sense of, do you know what short selling is?
Yeah.
And how that kind of works, how that is structured, which then these are all just generally going to be the kind of questions that would follow on from the basic economics questions that you'll probably start off your interview with.
And in what situation would you short? When would you long? What would impact? Yeah, I mean, that was pretty impressive for an HR person, right? I'm just loving. In terms of, so we've talked about your most hectic question ever, but if we talk about your most technical questions, Thando, Francina, and Sheldon, that you were ever asked or that you ask, what are your hard hitters?
Someone else want to go first, or
you're gonna go first, Tans?
Okay. Because I had some exposure to interest rates before and cross currencies, I got to ask a question where I had to explain basis in the most simplest terms, as if I was explaining it to a non-finance person. So it was quite challenging. I think, yeah, I totally blundered in how I explained it, but looking back on it, it's basically, okay, I'm going to answer it. If you look at prices of a product around the world, say in South Africa or America, all else equal, with exchange rates, those products should be exactly the same price. But we know in reality in the world, things don't work that way. In essence, your cross-currency basis captures that distortion effect. So whether it's monetary policy from one central bank that distorts that basis, or sort of it's basically got to do more with monetary policy or anything that sort of that distorts the supply and demand mechanisms in the country will basically be captured in that basis. That's the simplest way you can explain it without getting too technical.
Yeah, I think that's good because remember they're not expecting you to be too technical. They know you're a student. They know you just starting out, and they just want to see that you understand it. I think that's a good, yeah, I think that was a good question. Who is next? Francina, Sheldon? Toughest technical question you ever had to handle?
I'll go real quick. Now that I look back at it, it probably wasn't the toughest technical question, but it was actually had a small derivatives overlay, which would be still related to the equities that we trade, even though I am on the cash team, was just simple. It kind of followed on a stock pitch idea that I had, and it was about what would I as a risk, essentially a risk hedge tool. So how would I hedge any risk exposure? They basically wanted me to go into talking up how derivatives serve as useful tools to hedge exposure, whether that be on the long side or the short side. I could use call options. I could use exactly call and put options. You've probably all gone through the period of having to discuss straddles and the likes, and call spreads. So essentially, it was just a segue into a very high level understanding of derivatives. But I think also what they were trying to get to was just how do you look at risk? Because it's probably a word we haven't actually said that much on this call, but you will hear it a lot of the time in your day to day at work. It's everything. Remember, we are people working at banks, and there's one thing the banks will always remind you of is that we are here to mitigate and manage risk. So that was something that I probably didn't go into the interview thinking about, how important the view is of risk, whether that be from the client side, whether it be from our side as the bank. So yeah, that was my question, just around how would I look at managing risk on any equity exposures we might have on the desk.
That's hardcore. So we actually had a comment here. The interview questions are well received, but they're more like a PhD research topic. And I want to give some perspective. And as I answered, these questions are to push you guys. They're almost like worst case scenario, because some of these questions, I'm telling you right now, these three would not have been asked as students entering into a grad program. They are hardcore, but if we're not hardcore, we're not teaching you stuff. So remember, yeah, as I say, it's to put it into perspective. Yeah, I don't want it to intimidate you and make you too nervous to be applying. What I want it to do is help you learn, because even if now when we're sort of interviewing grads and hiring grads, like I said, we're not expecting you to be so technical. But if you are the 109 people that we have on the call and you go in prepared, compared to, I heard FNB gets 13,000 or standard applications for the grad program. If we can get the 109 of you to be on par versus the others, you guys are going to be the guys who get the job. So take it as that. We're not trying to scare you, we're trying to inspire you.
Can I also add to that,
Mm.
Tracey? Because I'm also reflecting on, I've interviewed interns or potential interns and potential grads quite a number of times, and it isn't always technical, but it depends on the type of role you are being considered for. Because not all grad programs are made the same. Not all of them are the same. There's some where they're built to teach you. You come in, they don't expect a lot. You expect to be trained, and they take you in to train you. They will, maybe it's a rotational program, you'll sit here for 3 months, there for 3 months. You're not expected to do much. Like, you're not going to be revenue generating from the start or anything like that. However, there are some roles where they will teach you how to trade, right? Because the expectation is in 1 or 2 months, maybe you should be booking a trade. You should be executing something, because that's what they need from you. That's the support that they need from a grad or an intern, whatever it is. That's what they want. So it varies, and it depends on the role you're being considered for. However, you should prepare for anything. Don't go in, and I'm saying this just reflecting on somebody I interviewed some time ago, who had done an internship in a back office role in I think it was an equities environment. And I asked him, okay, do you understand how a trade gets to you for settlement, right? Have you ever gone to the trader and asked them, what drives the execution of this trade? Why did the client come and book this trade, right? Do you understand how it's priced? What goes into the price? Because the person had the opportunity to go find out. However, all they were focused on is pressing that button that said settle the trade and it's done, right? There was no curiosity beyond that. So if it's someone like that coming in for an interview, my expectation is you already understand the life cycle of an equity trade, right? Because you were in a position to see it. You had the opportunity to go and understand, and you're coming in for a role where there's potential for you to execute a similar trade. So do you understand it? So I'm going to be technical in that sort of scenario, because I'm expecting that you had the desire to find out, right? Even though you were limited in some way. Yeah, it was a short internship. You said somewhere, like even people who do winter school at RMB or something like that at APSA, you have opportunity. You can't just sit there and then they tell you about this, and then you walk away and you're like, okay, they told me about this. And I can go into the next interview for an actual grad role and say, I was told this. Okay, but beyond that, what did you go and find out? What did it inspire in you? What did you learn? What did you show me that, right? Because it also shows me your willingness to learn. And if I were to put you in a trading capacity, in a trading role, I know you are somebody I can trust to get this thing done or to do X, Y, and Z, and that by month 9, you will be at this level because I know you have it in you. So I think, yes, it's difficult sometimes, it's tricky, it seems like we're saying a lot, but it really is the reality of the world that we operate in. It's not that difficult. You will understand when you eventually get there, but prepare yourself, right? Don't walk in and think they'll give me everything, they'll teach me, and where's your willingness? Find out, where's the curiosity, the genuine interest, where is it? Yeah, that's my 2 cents.
That's gold. That's gold. Yeah, they need to see the hunger, right? Whether you know the answer or not, it's the hunger. I see that Yosh has a question.
Okay, good evening, guys.
Hey.
Yeah, I have a question for Francina. I looked at your profile and you are an emerging markets, rates, and FX salesperson, right? So I'm just keen as to the most common technical questions as far as rates are concerned.
Lovely, specific question. Good job.
Thank you.
Good job.
So in my world, what's common is interest rate swaps and cross-currency swaps, right? And I go back to where I said, I will let your answers guide me to the kind of questions to ask you. So if I were to ask you about where the repo rate is at this point, right? Because it's something you should know. It's something that's publicized everywhere. I will ask you where the repo rate is. And then I will ask you, where do you think the repo rate is going in the next 3 to 6 months? Because I'm also testing your ability to assess, right, what's happening around you and gauge and make assumptions and have a view. And then I will ask you, if you are an importer, right? Because we deal with exporters and importers. There are people who benefit from a rise in interest rates and the people who benefit from a drop in interest rates. If you are an importer, right, and you have debt exposure, right, because you need to fund what you're bringing into the country, what you're supplying, and you have debt, and now you said that you think interest rates are going to go up. I'm going to ask you then, how would you, as an importer who has debt, manage interest rate risk, right? And then you might tell me about an interest rate swap where you do a fixed for floating sort of thing, you swap it out, where you change it from floating to fixed because you think rates are going to go up, it's going to be expensive. So that's how I would lead you to it. I won't go directly and say, okay, corporate is in this scenario, this is what's happening. I want to gauge what you're telling me because I want to walk with you with your understanding, because I don't want you to think you're wrong as you're answering, because it will trip you up. So even if you say something wrong, I will still walk with you in the scenario that you are creating. But I will get to the end part where we speak about rates now, right? Where I want to understand, do you actually understand the rates? Yes, it was a journey getting to this point. But now when I get to the actual product, do you understand it, right? But under which scenarios would it be appropriate for a client to use this product, right? To use this rates product? Because it's fine if you tell me a textbook thing, it's fine. But do you understand why they use it is what I want to understand. So that's how I would pursue a rates question, if I can put it that way, is to understand, do you know why it's used? As opposed to how it works. And we'll get to the question when we ask how it works, because you'll tell me, but do you understand why it's being used? So with everything in markets, for me, do you understand why that's the case, right? Because it's fine to know interest rates, it's fine to know inflation is here, but do you understand why? And do you understand what it means? That's the question for me. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Francina.
You guys are getting gold. To be honest, we're getting gold in terms of the engagements and the questions, which is superb. But you guys are getting gold in terms of the information, the responses, etc. from this team. I'm really impressed. So we have a question. Are there any software and or digital skills that an incoming grad would you advise early professionals to familiarize themselves with? Status, Corporate Finance Institute, financial modeling, valuation certificate, or Bloomberg terminals, etc.
It depends which desk you're going to end up on. I mean, I can talk more so from the trading space, where you are expected to be able to do basic Excel functions. We maintain most of our curves and do quite a bit of modeling on that. And then things like Python, if you can code, that's an advantage. You're not expected to know it. I mean, this is stuff that you can learn on the job, but typically we use Python on the desk to basically generate trade recommendations for us. So it would basically model where certain points are out on a yield curve, and we'd use that to try come up with trade recommendations for clients. So if you can do that sort of stuff, it's an added advantage. Bloomberg, I don't necessarily think so. It's expensive to get a terminal. You get taught that stuff on a job, and literally you go on a course, and within like 2 months, you can basically use most of the functions on Bloomberg, and you'll constantly be refining them throughout your career. So I think, yeah, just that basic need doesn't necessarily have to be in depth. Most of the stuff is taught on the job.
Okay. Olobogeng, are you happy with that? You can do a thumbs up. Francina, if you want to add anything to that. Otherwise, we'll go to the next question.
Yeah, look, it depends. So in my experience, we've always encouraged automating processes because you get very repetitive tasks. And it's always a bonus when someone has the ability to code something and put something in place. But I can't say that I particularly look out for that. But there are areas within global markets, because global markets is broad. I think we speak about sales and trading, but there are other functions as well. There's finance in global markets, there's market risk in global markets, there's operations, there are tech teams as well. So you shouldn't think you need to have studied economics and finance and all of that to get into markets. There are various roles that you could take. And various teams also require certain things. I mean, Thando just mentioned Python now. I remember we were even taught how to code in Python when I was at RMB. So certain things are encouraged. So you can have VBAs, data, someone mentions data, there's also SAS. There are various coding languages, platforms. It's great to have them because there are various ways that they can be used. But I can't say in my function that it's something that we particularly look out for, but there are teams that look out for certain skills, if I can put it that way.
And it's a nice question for yourselves when you're in an interview. You can say, are there any particular software or digital skills or whatever that would enhance me if I was in the job? We have 10 minutes and 2 questions. One is, what technical math questions can we expect? And the other one is a very common question. How valuable is the CFA charter for investment banking / the banking industry? And let's separate that out from investment banking / corporate finance and global markets. So Thando and Francina, do you want to each touch on both your views, right?
Okay, I see the comment. Oh, wow.
I love this. Don't be put off. Francina's giving me chills. You're giving me chills. I'm so impressed. You're the future CEO of First Rand. And you're going to be my baby. All right, let's go.
So CFA is very valuable, right? I encourage pursuing these certifications. I always encourage it. I encourage trading exams. I encourage FRM. I encourage CFA, FMVA, all of them, because all of them are valuable. And I'm saying this, I know Tracey was saying, let's not talk about investment banking, corporate finance, but even on my desk, I have a corporate finance textbook right next to my monitor, right? Because banking is an ecosystem, if I can put it that way. It is an ecosystem. You have various divisions, but all of them are interconnected and all of them play a role in the acquisition of a client relationship, the management of it, as well the financial risks that they face. So you should never think of a space in isolation. You should never think of global markets in isolation or CFA in isolation, because CFA covers various aspects. There's econometrics in it, there's corporate finance, there's economics itself, there is risk management, etc. There are derivatives in there. So it covers everything. You get a sense of the sort of asset classes, right, that we deal with. And you should never look at it in isolation. There's no such thing that CFA is not valuable in markets, it's more valuable in IB and all. There's no such thing. If you want to do CFA, if it's aligned with you, do it. If you feel it will give you an advantage, do it, right? If any certificate, literally anything that's related to finance or markets or whatever, if you feel like it will help you, do it. And I see like a lot of discourse on LinkedIn as well, saying which is better, CFA, FRM, or etc. All of these things that get compared. But if you feel conviction to pursue something, do it. Because I haven't done CFA. I have no intention of doing it because I'm not moved by doing it. I don't have the conviction. I'm going to be wasting my money and my time. I have other things that I want to pursue that I have genuine interest in that I feel would help me. And maybe in consultation with other people, I've asked, what do you think of this, right? But if I wanted it and someone says, no, don't do it, but I still want to do it, I do it because it's for me. I see benefit in it. So if you want to do CFA, do it, right? If you can afford to do it now as a student, do it. And you have the time, do it. You can even express that you have interest in doing it during your interviews. It's a good sign. Do it. So I wouldn't discourage you, if you ask me.
I agree. And it's very much driven by yourselves. And what I have to say is, if you are signing up for CFA, put it on your CV, CFA candidate in progress. And I had another thought about CFA, which I'm going to go back. Yeah, I would say that if you're going to do it, the other thing is it's tough to do it while you're a student, not only financially, but also because of the workload. And if you start somewhere where a company feels like the CFA 1 or whatever is going to be of benefit to you, they'll pay for it and they'll be supportive of the study time, etc., etc. So don't put too much pressure on it, pressure on yourselves about it. So in wrapping up, Thando, what I was thinking is technical math questions. Now, the financial engineering, technical math heavy stuff is only a small part of global markets. So, and Thando, you haven't been in, well, neither of you have been in financial engineering. Can you give an example of the technical math stuff, or should we call on some people perhaps for an online question that we can answer later?
Yeah, and it's definitely not my field of expertise.
Exactly. But that's good because it's phew. When you do go through, I know Prof. Taylor's math finance, MCOM risk, etc. candidates, students when they are candidates, they are asked some hardcore stuff. But you know what? That's a story for another day. Sheldon, do you have something?
Sorry about that. I had to just rush back to the desk, which is why it's going to be a little noisy here. So please tell me if you can hear me.
This is so exciting. Can you turn on your camera and let them see an international desk?
Don't know if you guys can see properly, but this is my desk.
Look at this. You see the screens, guys. This is inspiring.
Okay, so there are just a lot of people who are all, because the European club just ended now, so we've got probably like 400, 500 people on this desk. But I think quickly for you all, I think you can obviously, like everybody said here, depending on the particular desk that you end up chatting to, which is generally something that's going to happen a little further down the line, right? So in terms of you stressing too much about mathematical questions, I think you're probably just going to be tested on whatever was covered during your coursework at uni. So Francina was speaking to the ideas of understanding what a bond is, or understanding what a coupon is, and I mean, Thando spoke about understanding basis. So, and I spoke about derivatives. You get a very basic question about how you would price something, or how the price of something is determined. I think you'll probably find that would probably be the extent of your technical questions. Again, once you get to the point of this is potentially for a very quant-based role, then I guess they can dive into the nitty-gritty a little more. A point I actually wanted to make on the whole systems and I guess any specific knowledge you should have with regards to like Bloomberg, states and the likes. Again, you learn that on the job, because they're not expecting everyone to also have had access to all of that, which would have been a bit of a reach, exactly like you just said about Bloomberg. It's expensive. You're probably not going to have one unless you're fortunate enough at university, potentially have a shared terminal. And when you do join, they give you a Bloomberg training anyways. But a point that I would make that has probably come to mind very recently has been around AI, actually. I think something that is very useful would be equipping yourself in the sense of learning how to query an AI. So we've just actually recently had 2 rollouts for the use of certain large language models. So we use Copilot, there's obviously ChatGPT, Claude, and the like. But I mean, these are just amazing resources that you can generally access for free. So if you are fairly adept at being able to query and find out answers, because nobody's expecting you to know everything from the get-go. But if you can ask the right questions, likewise, whether you can say you've been messing around with your own little chat with ChatGPT and trying to build out your own little forecasting models, or you've been building out something to help you pull data of all the stocks in South Africa and certain certain sectors, whatever it may be, or you're using it to get through your project or finding your project, and you're like, I mean, I think somebody spoke earlier about the project is around how geopolitics affects the JSE. If you can just show how you've been able to go out there and source tools that you think might be useful to answering these questions, I think that also is a great thing. Because the one thing I think you should always remember at a bank or a big institution, we're going to provide you with the tools, but they're going to test to see if you will be able to use them. They're basically unlimited resources inside these banks. Okay. And they just want to see, will you be somebody who show initiative, show desire, show curiosity, as Francina just flagged, in terms of really wanting to own your creativity, like we just said, in terms of your thinking and how you would potentially go about finding out an answer. I would think that would be a good place for you to kind of hop on. So yeah, that was just a very random abstract part I just talked about. But yeah, I just wanted to say AI is definitely something that we get talked to a lot about recently. And it's definitely something that we're noticing is kind of proving a big differentiator in terms of people who are, let's say, a little more on the dinosaur spectrum of banking or the global markets that have no idea how this works, to those who are, let's just say, a little more adept, spends a little more time messing around with them. So if you ever find yourself some free time, definitely go mess around with ChatGPT, Flow, and the like.
This is gold. I'm going to end off with a message from Snare. Hi all, another global markets professional here. It also helps, and thank you very much for volunteering to be part of this, Snare. It also helps to register for the SAIFM board exams, intros, FX, derivatives, equities, etc., which cover different financial asset classes in order to understand the background of the GM ecosystem. This is the first requirement in most GM graduate programs once grads into the space. So that's beautiful. Guys, I can't thank you enough. And I'm talking here not only to the students who've been part of this, but to the panel who've been at my side, and the amazing organization of the event, and to know that in an hour and a half of our time, we've changed lives. So thank you so much. And feel free to follow Thando, Francina, Sheldon on LinkedIn and connect with them and see what it is that they're doing and keep your networking going. Okay. Have a good evening. Have a good weekend.
Thank you, Tracey. Thank you, everybody, for
Thanks so much, everyone.
Cheers, everyone.
All right,
Thank you for your
guys.
time, everyone.
Sure. Bye.
Thank you.
Cheers and good luck.